everybody, Melissa here, and today we're going to be learning about SAT reading. So I pulled the test directly from the College Board website, and we're going to be doing the first passage from from that reading test. But before we get started, I want to go over some key tips that I think are really important into increasing or just improving your SAT reading scores. So, number one, always read the short paragraph right before the passage, and it's this little paragraph right here. And number two, answer questions in order, but skip general questions or questions about the passage as a whole and save them for later. And also make note of paired questions, but we'll see what those look like later on. Number three, only read what you need. So use the line references and the lead words in the questions to guide you to which part of the passage we should be reading. And if it tells us to go to one line or one word, it's always the safest to read a little bit before and a little bit after the target area. Number four, predict what the correct answers will be. I know this sounds a little bit weird. How can I predict the answer when I'm trying to figure it out? Well, we have the whole passage as evidence, or basically as an open note or open book test. So we have to use what's given to us only, and we can predict what the correct answer is just by looking at the text. We don't even need to analyze what the text says or paraphrase it in any way. And then the last key tip is that process of elimination is your friend. So just as long as you're always using best judgment when you're eliminating what doesn't sound right, process of elimination can only help you. And correct answers will always match what the text says. So we'll see too how some answers, they might sound right, but they won't be the exact correct answer, because there will always be one that's more true or that's just better overall. All right, so with all these tips in mind, let's get started. Okay, yes, so we see that I pulled directly again from the College Board site. This is SAT Practice Test 1, and we are going to be looking at the first passage from that test. So, before even reading any of the questions, let's read the little paragraph that introduces our passage. This passage is from Lydia Minatoya, The Strangeness of Beauty, 1999. The setting is Japan in 1920. Chie and her daughter Naomi are members of the House of Fuji, a noble family. So even before looking at the questions, even before reading any word of the passage, we kind of have a little bit of background of what we are going to be reading. So we know that it's taking place in 1920 in Japan, and we also are given a couple of the characters already. So without reading any part of the passage still, let's just quickly go over what the questions will be. So number one, which choice best describes what happens in the passage? So already I know that I'm going to save this one for last because it's pretty general. Number two, which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? And again, this is asking about the passage as a whole, so I would expect to save these first two for very last. And number three, we have a vocabulary and context question, and with even line references, so it should be easy to start off with. Number four, which reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? Number five, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay, so notice here that we actually have two pairs of paired questions. So paired questions are the questions that ask you one thing, and then the very next question asks, what's the best evidence that proves that your previous answer is correct? So we have two of those. 4 and 5 are going to be our first paired questions, and then also 9 and 10 are going to be the second one. But I'll show you when we get there that they're really not that bad. And number 6, in the passage, Akira addresses Chie with. Number 7, the main purpose of the first paragraph. Okay. Number 8, as used in line 2, form most nearly means. Number 9, why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? All right, so notice that we kind of have a lot of questions that ask about very specific parts of our passage. So those ones will probably be easy in the sense that we know what parts to read and where to look, but everything else I'll show you as well that even without line references, they won't be that bad. Okay, so going back to number 3, because remember that we're skipping 1 and 2 for now because they're very general. Okay, so number 3, as used in line 1 and line 65, directly most nearly means. All right, well, let's take a look at what it's even saying. So line 1, Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. And I'm just going to read a little bit after. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would Chie have been more receptive? All right, so we see how that's used there. He came directly, breaking all tradition. So how does that relate to its second use in line 65 over here? I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. He's asking directly. Well, what even is he asking first? Let's go a little bit up above. We have an understanding. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So keep in mind though that number 3 isn't asking us what does the word directly mean. It's asking, as it's used in lines 1 and line 65, directly most nearly means which one. So depending on how it's used in the context determines how we define it. Because it's not asking for the literal definition, it's asking what does it mean in context of the passage. So we know that Akira is asking something directly, and he broke all tradition just to do so. We also know that he is asking directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So he's asking directly for convenience rather than thinking about tradition or the real way to do it, I guess. So with that in mind, let's think about how is directly being used then? Is he being frank? Well, I know frankly it is a synonym of directly, but the manner of which he's approaching Chie and the manner of which he's even asking directly, it's not necessarily frank because frank more means he's open, honest, and candid about what he's asking, but really directly, there's a stronger explanation for him asking this directly. So for right now, I'm just going to cross off frankly. Also because that's a trick. If it's a synonym, it might not be correct because, yeah, the literal definitions are very close to each other, but the definition of frankly and how directly is used in the whole context of the story, it doesn't quite match up. So is he speaking confidently? Well, if we look at what he's saying, especially in the first part, we can't tell whether he's speaking confidently or not. All we know is that he's breaking tradition. And especially with line 65, he's asking about a proposal for sure, and he's asking directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. So if the correct answer were confidently, then this might say, I ask directly because I'm confident, or I ask directly because I am assured that you will receive me well, or something like that. But that's not what it says at all. It's not implying that he's being confident. So let's cross that off as well. Okay, so we got choice C, without meditation, or this means without thinking about it. Okay, this sounds a little bit right. So, is if he's asking directly, he's breaking tradition, especially in the 1920s. This sounds like something that wouldn't typically be done. It's probably taboo to break tradition. And even in line 65, I ask directly because the use of a go-between takes much time. Either method comes down to the same thing, a matter of parental approval. So here we even see how he compares his method of asking to the traditional way, which is having a go-between. And so, is he asking directly without meditation or without thinking? I think it's safe to say that yes, he might be. So let's hold on to that and just verify that our answer is not D. So does directly mean with precision? So essentially, this is almost the opposite as choice C. Is he doing it without thinking, or is he doing it with careful planning? We already know that he's kind of asking on a whim and he's on a time crunch. So probably him doing this was not precise. It was probably very spontaneous or very last minute. So I'm going to cross off D, and we are left with C, which is the correct answer anyway. Okay, so moving on to number 4 and 5 now, we do have our first set of paired questions. So, meaning after we give an answer to number 4 and number 5, we will have to give the exact piece of evidence that supports what we selected in number 4. And these ones I'd say are the easiest to get wrong on the SAT reading, because imagine if you put the wrong answer for number 4, then the piece of evidence that goes with your incorrect answer will probably also be incorrect. So the easiest way to not let these trip you up are to basically use the answers from the second question, or use the pieces of evidence from the second question to answer the first question. So for 4 and 5, the way that we'll be doing it is we're going to be asking ourselves, which reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? But instead of looking at number 4's answer choices, we're going to try answering that question with the pieces of evidence from number 5. So just keep that in mind. We're really answering number 4 with the piece of evidence first. And then once we find the piece of evidence, we can answer or properly answer number 4. Okay, so let's see how this works out, because I know that sounds a little bit confusing. Okay, so number 4, which reaction does Akira most fear from Chie? Well, we know that one of these reactions from number 5 is going to tell us exactly Akira's thoughts or fears. So let's look at choice A, starting with line 33. His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. Okay, so just that line as it is there any fear being expressed there? I don't think so at all. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off choice A from number 5, because that can't be the right answer. So now let's check lines 49 through 51. You know how children speak so earnestly, so hurriedly, so endearingly about things that have no importance in an adult's mind? That's how she viewed him as a child. Okay, so here the narrator is speaking about Chie, actually. And Still, we're not getting any hints of what Akira is fearing in this piece of evidence. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off B. And the third option, lines 63 to 64. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. Here we have Akira speaking directly to Chie, and he is asking, please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. And then we already know that he's asking because a go-between is too time-consuming, and ultimately he is just asking for Naomi's hand in marriage. Okay, well, here we have his direct expression of his sentiments. Please don't judge my candidacy by the unseemliness of this proposal. So he already knows and he's aware that his proposal is slightly taboo, or it might have some negative things, negative reactions. So I'm going to hold on to choice C because that is expressing exactly what Akira is thinking. Okay, so the last one, lines 71 through 72 over here. Eager to make his point, he'd been looking her full in the face. All right, well, just as that is, that doesn't show us any fear at all either, so we can cross that off. And number 5 is C. So now that we have the exact piece of evidence that answers what Akira is most fearful from Chie, let's see what answer choice from number 4 directly supports our correct answer from number 5. Okay, so based on the evidence that we have, we know that he is scared of her reaction because his proposal is breaking tradition, as we know from line 1 as well. Is Akira fearful that Chie will consider his proposal inappropriate? That's very, very plausible. That matches the meaning, or that matches the sentiments of what we chose for choice C. So I'm going to hold on to A for sure. Is it choice B? Will she mistake his earnestness for immaturity? Well, if I had to say, I'd say that choice B, it probably matches with choice B from number 5, where she says, you know how children speak so earnestly that it's almost like a child? That one, we already know that B is wrong. So we can automatically also cross B off for number 4. So is it choice C? Will she consider his unscheduled visit an imposition? I have a feeling that Akira has bigger concerns than just being an unannounced guest. So I'm going to cross off C. He's definitely more concerned about the proposal, the whole reason why he's showing up in the first place. Okay, so last one to determine, is it D? She will underestimate the sincerity of his emotions. Again, while we can say that, hey, maybe this is true because of the way that they're interacting, we already know based on the answer that we chose for number 5 that Akira is concerned about his proposal. So we can cross off D. And choice A is correct. So now moving on to number 6. In the passage, Akira addresses Chie with one of these options. Okay, and before we even look at what the answer choices are, let's try and read what the passage says first. Okay, so definitely we don't even have to start at the beginning just to know. So at this point, whenever you do need to read what the passage says, start skimming, because we do not want to waste any time reading every single word unless you're pretty confident with your reading comprehension skills, or you know that you're a really fast and understanding reader. Then let's skim for time purposes. So Chie Naomi. Okay, Akira's name first pops up here, but still, okay. So I'm just going to start here at line 23. We get our first descriptions of what Akira is exactly doing. And we already know that Naomi has told her mother, Chie, go talk to him. Okay, so Akira was waiting in the entry. He was in his early 20s, slim and serious, wearing the black military-style uniform of a student. As he bowed, his hands hanging straight down, a black cap in one, a yellow oil paper umbrella in the other, Chie glanced beyond him. In the glistening surface of the courtyard's rain-drenched paving stones, she saw his reflection like a dark double. "Madam," said Akira, "forgive my disruption, but I come with a matter of urgency." His voice was soft, refined. He straightened and stole a deferential peek at her face. In the dim light his eyes shone with sincerity. Chie felt herself starting to like him. "Come inside, get out of this nasty night. Surely your business can wait for a moment or two. I don't want to trouble you. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I've an opportunity to go to America as dentist for Seattle's Japanese community." And then if we read a little bit past, we also know down here that he is asking for her daughter's hand in marriage. So seeing their first interactions and also reading exactly what Akira is doing and holding himself, let's look at the answer choices to see which one matches. In the passage, so how is Akira addressing Chie? So let's see what we can cross off. Affection but not genuine love. Especially based on the dialogue between them. He bows before he speaks, and he addresses her with madam. So not really affectionate, because it's really Chie's daughter that he has the genuine love for. So let's cross off choice A. Is he speaking with objectivity? I'd say he's not speaking with objectivity at all. He's speaking very, very personally. He's speaking about himself. And then down here, we even see that he's regarding Chie, and he's saying, "I know that I'm disrupting you." So he's not being objective. He's actually being pretty polite, and he's regarding both his sentiments and Chie's sentiments. So let's cross off B. Is it C then? Amusement, but not mocking disparagement. Well, just based on the dialogue that they have, and especially the dialogue that they have down here too, or over here, we can see that he's not really speaking with amusement either. He's being very, very serious, and he does say, "I'm speaking with a matter of urgency." So while I think, in line 49, we do see the word amusement filled her with maternal amusement. That's not what's going on here. We know that Akira is definitely speaking seriously, not with amusement. So let's cross it off. And the last one that we're even left with is choice D. Respect but not utter deference. So we can tell because he bowed, or he's saying madame, and he's even acknowledging his own disruptiveness. Yeah, he's definitely speaking with respect, but not the most respect that he could give, because we already know too, he's breaking tradition in his way of asking for Naomi's hand in marriage. So he is breaking some social norms of the time. So, and it is safe to say then that this is our correct answer, because it is the most true. So now we're looking at number 8. As used in line 2, form most nearly means appearance, custom, structure, or nature. So number 8, this is really similar to number 3, where they're not asking us what's the definition of form. They're asking what's a good replacement for the way that it's used in line 2. So let's take a look at it over here. Line 2, part of the first paragraph. Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Had he followed form? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father to approach a go-between? Would Chie have been more receptive? All right, so we see form, the way that it's used, and notice too that right after it's used, they kind of have they use double dashes to break off, maybe explaining what that form is. So let's take a look at the options again. As used in line 2, form most nearly means, is it appearance, custom, structure, or nature? Well, based again on what it's saying, we know that this first paragraph is all about questioning the way that Akira even proposed, or the way that he even came to ask for Naomi's hand in marriage. So we know that his form, it's not talking about his appearance. Had he followed appearance? No, that one doesn't even work. Um, just going back and forth. Had he followed custom? Had he asked his mother to speak to his father? That seems like it would work. So I'm gonna hold on to B. And then with the other ones, had he followed structure? Had he asked his mother? Would she have been more receptive? I don't think so. So I think at this point it's safe to eliminate all the other ones that don't pertain to tradition or custom, because it opens with saying Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. Was that it? Was breaking tradition it? And here we have concerning the custom. So definitely form is B. Okay, so moving on to number 9 and 10 now. This is the last set of paired questions that we have. So just like how we did with number 4 and 5, let's try answering number 9 with a piece of evidence from number 10, and then we'll go back and pick which one matches the piece of evidence. So number 9. Why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? Well, if we can predict the answer, we kind of already know just by reading or skimming the passage that he got called to be a dentist in America, so he really wants to ask for Naomi's hand in marriage. And let's look at the exact pieces of evidence they give us then. So what exactly is he being urgent for, or why is he speaking with a matter of urgency? Let's check line 39 first. Okay. I don't want to trouble you. So that kind of doesn't sound like he's speaking with any matter of urgency at all. Let's cross off A. And then let's look at choice B. So lines 39 to 42 this time. 39 to 42 says, I don't want to trouble you. Normally I would approach you more properly, but I've received word of a position. I have an opportunity to go to America as a dentist for Seattle's Japanese community. So looking at this matter of urgency, or forgiving the disruption for his matter of urgency, it's because it sounds like it could work. So I'm going to hold on to choice B because it seems like it does expand exactly on what his matter of urgency and his disruption is even for. So then looking at lines 58 through 59, depending on your response, I may stay in Japan. I've come to ask for Naomi's hand. So why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? This sounds like it could be plausible, right? Because we know that he's coming to ask for Naomi's hand in marriage, but is he really, really trying to just ask for her hand in marriage because he's so urgent about marrying her, or is there a different reason for his urgency? We know that there is a different reason for his urgency. So we can cross off C. And then now we have a better idea that, yeah, it's probably going to be B, but let's just cancel out or rule out the last option, D. So 72 to 73, abruptly, his voice turned gentle. I see I've startled you. Yeah, again, that doesn't really sound, or that doesn't really express why he is speaking to Chie with a matter of urgency. It's more talking about the reaction after the fact. So it's definitely not D. And we're safe to say that B is the answer for number 10. Okay, so now that we know that B is the correct piece of evidence that answers number 9, we just have to see which statement, A, B, C, or D, matches exactly with what we picked out. Okay, so why does Akira say his meeting with Chie is a matter of urgency? Does he fear that his own parents will disapprove of Naomi? Okay, well, he doesn't mention that at all, actually, so we can go ahead and cross that off. Is it B? Does he worry that Naomi will reject him and marry someone else? Well, if we take a look at the whole passage, we can see that Naomi is really only mentioned in the beginning here when she tells her mother, ooh, you should go talk to the boy in the parlor. And we also see her at the end when she tells her mom, I'm gonna marry him. So we can cross off B as well. Naomi is definitely set on marrying Akira as well. Is it C then? He has been offered an attractive job in another country. Well, we know then that that kind of does sound like lines 39 to 42, right? 39 to 42. I would approach you more properly, but I received word of a position to go to America to become a dentist. Okay, so it's probably going to be C, but of course, let's just verify that it's not D. He knows that Chie is unaware of his feelings for Naomi. Okay, so while yes, it's easily arguable that this is true, that's not the reason why he's speaking with a matter of urgency. So C is our answer for this one. So now that we've answered all questions 3 through 10, we can go back to the very beginning to questions 1 and 2, the ones that we saved for last because they asked about the passage as a whole or they were just too general. So now that we've got a better understanding of what the passage is even talking about from answering the rest of the questions, let's go back over here to number 1 and 2. I think I have everything. Okay. Number 1. Which choice best describes what happens in the passage? So is it A, one character argues with another character who intrudes on her home? Are they arguing? They're not really arguing, right? So safe for us to cross that off. Is it B, one character receives a surprising request from another character? That sounds very true, so let's hold on to B. Is it C, one character reminisces about choices she has made over the years? I'd say definitely not. We know that this story is unfolding as it happens, and no one's really doing that much reminiscing. So then the last one to check, is it D? One character criticizes another character for pursuing an unexpected course of action. So that last half, it does happen. There is a character that pursues an unexpected course of action by breaking tradition, but he's not really criticized for it. So choice B, it does summarize the passage as a whole a lot better than the rest. So this is our correct answer for number 1. And then our very last question, number 2, which choice best describes the developmental pattern of the passage? So is it A, a careful analysis of a traditional practice? Well, the first line says Akira came directly, breaking all tradition. And we know then that the rest of the story is based on him breaking proper protocol for asking someone to marry him. So we can cross off A. It's not an analysis of a traditional practice at all. Is it B, a detailed description of a meaningful encounter? That sounds like it could be right. I'm going to hold on to B. Is it C, a definitive response to a series of questions? Well, we know that it does kind of open up with a series of questions, but does what ensued, does it answer those questions? Not really. If anything, we know that those first questions were all rhetorical, right? Like, what would have happened if he had followed tradition? So we can cross off C. And then that last one, just to check D, is it a cheerful recounting of an amusing anecdote? And we kind of know that it's not. We know that Akira, he was speaking, he's very serious and he's very polite. And as we recall, amusement was kind of only said once. And the rest of it, he's still remaining very respectful, very polite. So, not really cheerful. There's not really an amusing tone. So then B is our correct answer for number one and number two. And with that, we have finished one whole passage. And then I'm just gonna go zoom back up to the tips just in case. But good luck on SAT reading. Keep practicing these tips with these techniques, and definitely over time, your score will improve. So good luck, everybody. Thanks.